You too, as always.
Welcome to Shifting from Grudge to Grit, Grace, and Gratitude. We were just complimenting one another. And I said my co-host looks as uh, beautiful as ever. There's something different about her today. And I mean, she's literally just come on, so I don't know what it is, and I haven't had a chance to properly look at you, but something looks different on you today.
Oh, really? Maybe it's the exhaustion.
I don't know what it is, but it's different. I don't know, it's your hair.
Maybe it's because I'm sitting in a new spot, so maybe the lighting is different or something like that.
Maybe it's
But
the
it's
lighting, yes.
same
Yeah.
old me.
Same beautiful you.
Thank you.
So we are just waiting to get our guest on. We always seem to be having a similar challenge with this particular audience from this particular virtual assistant. Marissa mentioned it's the same virtual assistant from previous guests that couldn't make it. So it's always a clash
Oh,
in terms of unknowing the time zone differences. So
right.
forgive us, but we are going to carry on full steam ahead. The topic for today was supposed to be whispering to the mind, reprogramming for prosperity, and really looking at what if your emotional blocks were quietly holding back your financial success. We hope we can get Dawna Campbell on. But in the main, we want to start looking at discussing emotional patterns and how they sabotage our finances, the power of subconscious reprogramming, and why prosperity is an emotional state, not just a bank balance. It's so interesting because somehow I went and listened to Spotify earlier on and it brought up right to the top. And I've just reshared this podcast with a few people how to keep calm when money is tight.
Wow.
Amazing, right?
Yes.
Amazing.
What's amazing also, Anissa, is that, when you're going through these difficult times and you're financially stressed and
Yes.
you're definitely not calm. Okay. You're in a state of panic because you feel alone, you don't know what to do, and you feel like the walls are closing in on you. But another thing that you feel is that this is only really just happening to you and it doesn't happen to anyone else.
Mm.
And this really truly proves that that's not the case, because we all experience this at some time or the other. And I think that when you're going through this these challenges, you also feel like, what's wrong with me? Why have I
Yes.
not been able to get it right? And all of this self-doubt comes along with this huge sense of heavy embarrassment.
Mm. Mm.
And you feel embarrassed because you feel like a failure, and you feel like, you haven't done enough to be able to have put yourself into this situation. But it happens to, I think, almost every one of us at some point or the other in our lives.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's so important for us to highlight and to become aware of what our blocks are, especially
No,
the emotional blocks.
and the spiritual blocks too, because it's one thing feeling financial scarcity and lack, but when you have spiritual scarcity and lack, that's your faith. And if we don't walk by faith, as I say, and lead with prayer, you will never have cultivated peace anyway, because your dependency on certainty is needed so much more
Mm.
than knowing that you'll be okay and taken care of. And I just want to acknowledge myself. I I must admit, I was telling my clients today, I don't know if you've watched Snoop Doggy when he says, I want to thank myself. And for some reason, that line is there with me the entire day since this morning to my clients too. But only only because I have cultivated that spiritual abundance. And so that in the times like these, I am probably extremely calm, and yet I am still going through my storms right now,
Mm,
right?
mm,
And so when I find these things popping up on my feed, I'm like, okay, who am I also meant to share this message with? So I trust that today that it's going to serve quite a few of us, because as Jamila has rightfully articulated here, it happens to the best of us. It doesn't define you, because there's an impermanence, and we have our guests, there's an impermanence to money, to abundance, there's an impermanence to the bad times, through the storms. And so I'm going to leave it there and just welcome our guest, Dawna Campbell, and let her say hello, and then I'll read her bio, and so that she can collect her breath while she's joining us.
Thank you so much. Hello, thank you for having me here.
So glad that you could make it. We're really looking forward to having you on today and listening to the wealth of wisdom that I know you're going to bring for us, not just for us, but our guests as well.
Thank
Yes.
you. It's going to be
Dawna,
fun.
where are you calling us from?
I am in Montana in the USA, so it's about 7:30 in the morning for me.
Very early. It's very early.
It's early here.
So we're even more grateful for you gracing us with your presence here and your wisdom this early in the morning. So we're getting everything fresh before your day kicks in. So without further ado, I'm going to just introduce Dawna's. Is it Dawna or Dana?
Dawna.
Dawna. Dawna, lovely known as the Mind Whisperer, is all about turning life's challenges into stories of triumph. With over 25 years in the field, she's passionate about helping people live with emotional richness, peak health, and deep connections. She is more than a speaker, she's a catalyst for change. Her dynamic talks, insightful books, and lively retreats ignite transformation. Whether she's at a global seminar or an intimate retreat, she inspires everyone to dive into self discovery and growth. Before becoming a transformation expert, Dawna managed $500 million as a financial advisor. Ooh, you have your battle scars in that story probably to share
Oh
with
yeah.
us. This unique background allows her to blend financial wisdom and emotional healing. She transforms lives by aligning emotional and financial well being through subconscious reprogramming. Her innovative methods help people break free from their emotional and financial limits, leading to lasting prosperity and health. Dawna is driven by a mission to spread positivity and change the world. She provides more than just hope. She offers a blueprint for a life full of emotional and financial wealth and meaningful relationships. Living in Big Fork, Montana, as she says, Dawna loves adventure and travels the world with an open heart. She's always ready to turn each encounter into an inspiring and enlightening experience. Awesome. So we're glad to have you here. And so I want to start at the point of when you accepted that quest to step into this unknown world of whether it's entrepreneurship or personal development, however you want to label or frame it, it doesn't really matter. But when you stepped out, moving away after 25 years being in one field,
hmm
what was the catalyst?
Well, I was in the financial services realm for about 10 years. And I had some events that happened in my life that really pushed me into the entrepreneur world. Now, in the financial planning world, you have a dualistic role. And so I was considered an employee, but I was also considered an independent contractor. So I already had some of that entrepreneurial spirit that was there, because if I didn't go out, talk to people, and have clients, I didn't get paid. And so there was that element with it. But what really happened for me was I was in a relationship. It was near the 2-year mark, and that person decided one day, it was either really, really good or not really good at all. And I remember sitting on the sofa, and he came down the stairs and he walked over and he put his hand around my throat and cut off my airway, and then took his hand off of me just before I took my last breath, and then expected me to retaliate, which I couldn't do. And I remember leaving the relationship and making a promise to God, the universe, to source, energy, whatever we call that, and saying that if you kept myself and my children safe, I would dedicate my life to this healing practice. And so I went into the healing world, and fulfilled my promise there, and have been going ever since. But it taught me a lot about how money works with us on a deeper soul level in that. So that was the catalyst for the change. I had already been learning some different things in the healing arts, and started a 2025 career in the healing arts with that. And so now that's what I have now, the Abundant Soul brand, and what I share in these money universal truths about how you are energy and money is energy and how it all works together.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Dawna. So amazing, how we get shifted through events that push us in the right direction of where we're meant to be in our lives, right?
Oh,
You known as the mind whisperer. What does our mind whisper to us daily that we often ignore?
What's really interesting about that and being called a mind whisperer, it's really about the subconscious beliefs that we have, but it actually goes deeper than that. And it's not just a belief, it's the energy or the emotion that we have, that we feel, that's associated with the belief. So we can change something from I'm unwanted to I'm wanted in a belief. But if you don't shift that emotional component to what that really feels like, you're not going to get very far. You're only going to change about 10% of your reality. So it's not so much what is we are thinking in our subconscious or what we're thinking on a day-to-day basis. It's what we are feeling on a day-to-day basis. Because every time we have a thought, and an emotion will get associated with it. And then over time, it will distort. And then pretty soon, you're at the end going, wait, how did I get here? But that feeling or that emotional component really started back when you were 3. We just didn't know it or didn't recognize it. And that's what the piece needs to shift and change. And so that's why it gets called mind whispering. It's about changing the energy, which is emotion or feelings, underneath the thought form. So thought form energy healing, shifting and changing that frequency. So we're changing from a place of anger to maybe a place of peace. We're changing from, say, sadness to love. And everything that we experience, no matter where it fits on the emotional spectrum scale, is designed to take us back to that state of love. So that's what happens on a day-to-day basis for us.
So interesting, Anissa. And I can already, as you're speaking, I'm thinking about what it is that I've been doing and what my patterns are. And, you try certain affirmations and you think that you're ticking all the boxes. I'm doing everything. I'm meditating. I'm journaling. But it's about that belief, right? And what I found very interesting is it's about something that might have happened when you were 3 years old or when you're 7 years old. And we tend not to dig deep enough and go to the core of the problem. We just seem to treat the symptoms and expect to get better. But there is a core problem that you have to address. And once you're able to do that, it changes your whole perspective of how you see yourself, but also of how you see others in your space. And someone who you might feel triggers you is probably just an encounter that you are meant to have to understand that the trigger is there within yourself. And the answer is within yourself to find out Why is it? It's not about the person, it's about why you feel that way.
Yes, absolutely. And you started off with, we do all of these things. We journal, we say affirmations, we meditate. Those are doing acts. And the doing is only going to change 10% of your conscious reality. It has to be in that being state, which is 90%, which is in the subconscious, that you actually have to shift and change in there. So it's about being. You be the meditation. So instead of sitting and going om or chanting or saying the affirmation, you actually have to stay in that brainwave state while you're doing other activities to keep you in a meditative state. And you might be washing the dishes, you might be driving the car, but it's a state of being, not a state of doing. And that's probably one of the biggest differences.
Oh, I love that, Dawna. I want to come back just for a moment because that was a really traumatic experience. So firstly, I want to acknowledge and recognize your vulnerability for sharing it publicly, which you probably have many a times.
Mhm.
But that becomes physiologically, a state that we are in. And seeing that we're talking about being rather than doing, how were you able to shift into a being state after being deeply traumatized by
Yeah.
such a tragic experience that could have ended your life?
Yes. That's a great question. I had been with this person recently. I had been divorced. I moved to another state to live in an ashram, a spiritual living community. And I brought my 2 children with me. And so rather than us breaking up after a period of time, he came out. And I did not know this at the time. He was also at the start of being unwell. He actually died about 7, 8 years later from brain cancer. And which, karma is a real thing. It does happen. And so I thought that that was interesting. But during that time, I had asked for a spiritual relationship, which I had, but I didn't know what I asked for. And it was either heaven or hell in any given moment. And it would flip back and forth. Now, some of these patterns I knew I had recognized because of how I was raised in the family that I was in. And it felt kind of normal for me, not knowing that it wasn't normal. And so I had lived in a state of fear a lot. And fear is saying, I just don't see the love in this moment. That would be the hell part. Then heaven would come in and it would be like euphoria and bliss. And you're like, I don't understand this. And so what happened was after that traumatic event, and I made it to where I was going to be at for the next several years of my life. And I sat there, and on the second day, and I said, well, I guess I made a promise to spirit. I need to go fulfill that. And so I started making phone calls, meeting new people, and going into a state of that beingness. I went into different circles. I didn't go back to an old life. I had gone to the ashram because I realized what, the other patterns in my life, they all associated with me. So yes, I was good at meditation. Yes, I had studied with a Buddhist monk before I went to the ashram. Yes, I had all of these skill sets. So I was able to just stop and anchor myself into them and really just sit with myself for a period of time. And then I could start looking at the emotional components of what I had gone through and what I had experienced, knowing that it was very possible that I wasn't going to be there. This person actually did follow me back to where I had moved to. And it took me a little while, but yeah, they eventually completely left my life.
There's two things I wanna say to that. Um, like I attended only a 10-day Vipassana practice of
Mhm.
silence, right? And what I loved about that Buddhist practice of Vipassana is exactly what you're describing. And I don't know if it's the very reason why I don't see the need to go sit in a meditative state. I don't see the need that I must journal. I will encourage my clients to do it if they so find fit in it. But the caveat that I say is
Mhm.
if it is what fits you. Because if you
Correct.
know yourself intuitively and intimately, you don't need the vices or the different practices. That
Correct.
was the first thing I just wanted to respond to. The second thing I want to say to you is that you highlight a very pivotal point, and something that I'd love our audience to learn more about is that the environment, that
Mhm.
our environment also dictates our states of being and
Mhm.
what's around us and who's around us.
Yeah.
So whether it was spiritually that you were influenced and guided to get out of the environment, and another good thing that you were quite intuitively wise on is that you knew what your patterns and trends were and the behavioral traits and habits that were
Yeah.
formed in your former years, right? So what was it? Was it spiritual guidance that allowed you to shift out of the environment? What what was that inclination that got you to do that?
So you use the tools until you don't need the tools anymore and you can just do it.
Yes.
So during that time, I was living at the ashram. This person was with me. And so very curious. So it wasn't the external environment of where I was living, it was the environment of the other person that I was with. And so I had been meditating, and I learned from the Buddhist monk meditation is an alteration of your brainwave patterns. So we stay in a beta brainwave. I'm talking, you're listening, we're all in beta brainwave links. But then when we start visualizing and imagining what next week might look like, we go into an alpha brainwave. When we go into a meditation, we go more deeper in, especially in transcendental meditation, a theta brainwave. And that's that what everybody wants to get to, the energy of no thought. It's very hard to do. And if you have thoughts, have thoughts. It's okay. But it's lowering the brain frequency. When you lower that and do that, you're in often states of happiness, love, bliss, joy, peace, balance, kindness, versus in a beta brainwave, we will have all of those, but we will also have all of the other brainwave patterns like anger and frustration and sadness and fear and anxiety and depression. And so the Buddhist monk taught me before I went that you have to stay in a certain brainwave state in everything that you are doing. And so we did a walking meditation, and he's after we were done, after like 12 minutes of walking in a circle, he sat us all down and said, you guys did really good. You were mindful of how far in front of people you were and how far behind somebody you were and what pace you were going and what was going on over here. But he said meditation is not something that you do, it is something that you become. So, whatever you are doing, you want to be in that energy. So, from that moment forward, I started practicing it. And then, when I learned with the emotional components, and I realized that when I was in these states of fear, I was just at the opposite end of the spectrum. I just needed to go to the state of love because I was saying, I don't recognize the love. There is no love. It's absent. It's completely gone. So I started training myself to know that if I'm in an emotional state, such as I'm angry, well, anger is a catalyst saying, I used to have love. I don't have it now. I need to go back to the state of love. And when you recognize the anger, rather than just acting out in the anger, you can ask yourself, what needs to change in that state of anger? What needs to change for you to return back to love? If you're in fear, what needs to change for you to recognize love? If it's sadness, you're holding love on the inside and you're not expressing that love out. So, what do I need to do to express the love from the inside out? And I wrote a lot and I journaled a lot and I put down my thoughts because I had clarity when I could see myself right. And then, of course, if you're in those brainwave patterns, you can receive guidance or something that you didn't see before. And I did that for a number of years until you don't need the tool anymore. So now yes, I still meditate. I still stay, in this brainwave state to experience higher emotions. But if I find myself slipping, sadness is okay. Anger is okay. Fear is okay if you know what to do with it. And some of it is natural because everything is designed to keep you safe. And so I still journal today, but I don't journal every single day. I might journal once a month and write down some of my thoughts. But now everything is going so fast. I can't remember the last time I actually wrote something because now I write books and I write magazine articles. I'm still writing, but that's what it went into. So you use those tools to change your state of being. And I'm going to tell you, it was not an overnight process. It took me a very long time. But what I've learned through different healing modalities, different people I've worked with, medicine women, yogic healers, lots of different people that if you're in a certain meditative state and you understand the emotional components, you can make a change instantaneously within yourself or within another person because of how quantum physics works. And then they get the benefit and they feel it, and it changes their physiological chemical balance because our emotions produce our chemicals. And they have that instant change and they get to move forward. And then they often attract in exactly what they're asking for, usually within 7 to 10 days.
Wow, that's amazing. That's what was my question was going to be for you, is that there's a lot of people who have studied or have read and have knowledge about, self-improvement, self-awareness and stuff. But for the person who is sitting listening to you now, Dawna, and who doesn't know how to go back to that 3-year-old child, or who doesn't know the questions to ask, tell us, is this what is the process that they should follow? Is it someone that they should reach out to, who is an expert in different modalities? Is it something that they should read? Is there something that you can give them that can get them on their journey? Because it's a lot easier for us to be able to say, okay, I'm going to get into this theta state. But for people who don't know or who are unaware, as many of us weren't, I mean, I wasn't aware of all of this here until I had people in my space who educated me about stuff and conversations that we have. But a lot of people are in that state where you're unaware and you're battling because you don't know and you cannot get out of this rut. Be it in a relationship, be it with finances, or whichever aspect of your life it might. What advice do you give to these people?
Yes. There's a lot of different ways, tools, and techniques that you can use with yourself. You can definitely reach out to somebody like myself and ask, or if you want to start working with it, the energy, and go and work on a conscious state, I will say, all you have to do is acknowledge how you feel. How do I feel in this relationship? Well, we kind of get along, maybe not. And write down on a piece of paper what you feel. This is the hardest part of the task because oftentimes we'll say something like, well, I'm stuck. No, the feeling is stuck. What's the feeling? I'm okay. No, the feeling is okay. What is the feeling? Well, I'm good. Well, good feels different to me than it does to you. What is the feeling? So when you can identify the feeling, there's 5 main emotions: fear, anger, sadness, happiness, and love. And all of the different feelings derive from that. Okay, well, I have some anxiety when I'm around this person. Okay, good. Write down the word anxiety. And then ask yourself, how would you rather feel? Because we don't want anxiety. So, you might rather feel having, let's say, happiness. So what you're going to do, because they can be opposites, you're going to breathe. And when you breathe in oxygen and all of the good things your body needs. And when we breathe out carbon dioxide, all the toxins, all the things our body doesn't need. So we're going to breathe in happiness, breathe out anxiety. And you do that for about 7 minutes, you will feel an experience of physiological change in the body over time. And as you do it for about 7 minutes, you will find yourself dropping into a meditation, and you'll start going into an energy of no thoughts because you focused your mind and you gave it a task. And I often tell people to set timers on their phone. And when the timer goes off, just ask yourself, how do I feel in this moment? And then how would I rather feel, and do that exercise. And when you do, and you do it for a series of days, and you can do it several times a day, you will feel that effect in your body and it will change. And then when you go back to your tasks, you're more focused, you have more clarity, you have more balance. And then the task that you're working on flows out of you because it's those lower emotions that get stuck that stop us from completing and getting things done.
That's such valuable information, I think, for anyone, no matter how far along in your journey you've gone, because you have to keep on coming back. And like you say, we do slip sometimes, and it's about feeling the emotions when you slip, but also then remembering the tools to get back up again. So thank you for sharing that. What I also would like to know from you is that when you're dealing with and you're doing the inner work, and you found that maybe there was that issue that you go back to your childhood with, and you deal with it, how do we make sure or do our best to make sure that it doesn't recur again and again, and that we are dealing with the actual problem itself and then letting go of it, whether it's getting into a state of theta and letting go of it, with your belief systems, or whether it's a cord cutting process. What would you advise on that?
Yeah, that's where you would want to step in and use somebody like myself, learn the process or the technique so you can work on yourself. It takes me 2 days to teach it. To change it for somebody, I'm about an hour and a half at the very most, depending on what the event is. Because what our brain does is it assigns feelings to all the different events, and then it stays and then it replicates. So not only do we have to understand the event, we also have to understand that emotional component. And if we're going back to childhood and to have it permanent, you have to know the pathway. And you have to know how to get to the actual event. And then you have to know how to get to the emotions of the event without reliving them. And then it's not the first emotion necessarily that comes up. It might be 3 or 4 emotions down, and then really what the situation was. And so most oftentimes it goes back. Most of the time it's like, a lot of times when people went to school, they felt abandoned by their parents because they've lived with them and now they're in this other environment and no one explained anything. So they needed understanding, for example. And that's a huge one. But it usually goes back to an energy of wanting to feel appreciated, wanting to feel valued, wanting to feel worthy, wanting to know that you were enough or that you mattered every single time. And when you get down to the heart of it. Now, can you just go to that emotion and make the change to something? I wanted to feel appreciated, so I'm going to let go of. Yes, you can. But until you know what event it was associated with, you're not going to get the same physiological flush in the body. So it is a process that we go through.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that we're having this discussion because, even in my work, and same for Jamila, it's we use neuroscience as well. I certainly have studied a bit of the neuroscience modality in coaching, but blend it with the behavioral science stuff, or the cognitive behavioral psychology. And one of the things that I always bring my client back to is exactly what you are talking about. What was that one life-defining experience or event or exchange in that relationship, or within that organization that you might have worked for, at that school, at home with your parents or your siblings? because that defining experience almost comes up viscerally as if it just happened today, but it was ages ago. And as you say, the brain and the hippocampus records that as a stored
Yeah,
memory,
it does.
which then goes, the brain just is doing what it's designed to do,
Mhm.
protect, right? Protect you. So you go into this fight, flight, freeze, fawn, fright state. And I think the latest is also faint state.
Yeah,
However, how do
yeah.
we get people? And this is always the difficult part in our line of work, because I have to say to them a caveat: we are going to only visit a period of time that defined this experience for you, this life experience, in order for you to have awareness and bring it into consciousness, because we want to make that unconscious conscious.
Mhm.
However, those, again, like Jamila says, that don't have the tools, what are ways to reconnect back to those pathways, those mental maps, those models, those stories that we've told ourselves based on those visceral experiences? Because it's an assumed adaptation based on that experience, but it doesn't mean we can't rewire it. And the fact that our brains are malleable, and to create a new pathway. How do we connect those dots for those that are listening in today to do just that?
Yes.
And
So,
sorry, before you go on, how do we associate our financial lack and scarcity also on
okay,
that basis that Anissa has spoken about?
it's two separate questions there. So, how do we get back to the things in childhood? The key is really the emotions. So, you start with where you are in the present day. How do I feel? And then from there, you can understand, well, I feel stress. Well, where is that stress located in the body? Where do you feel the stress? And then when you ask it, a lot of times it's here in the heart space. Sometimes it's in legs, stomach is very good. Well, when was the first time I remember experiencing that feeling? How old I was really? When was the first time I ever really remember feeling stressed? Well, I felt stressed at home when my parents were fighting, and I remember it when I was 4. Well, that's how you get back to memory. And then you ask what happened. And then sometimes I'll go, well, I haven't thought about that or known about that for, I thought it was gone. That was like 20, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And I'm just now remembering it. And that's how you get back to a subconscious memory there. And oftentimes that's how it works. With money, with scarcity, and with lack, and those are just different energy frequencies. A lot of them are learned. We have 4 different emotional bodies that we change our frequency in. One is our day-to-day experience, our core experiences, which is like going back to your childhood memory. One is in the DNA, the beliefs and the energies and the frequencies we were born with. One was in the what I call social conditioning. You can also call it history. What was happening in society around you for group conscious beliefs? And then one is on a soul level. What did you come here with, or what did you learn in a dream state? So on the money side, what happens is you are energy and money is energy. And without you, money isn't going to do anything. It doesn't have a frequency except for the frequency you are in that you apply it to. So if you don't feel you are worthy on the inside, chances are you don't have a high net worth. If you don't feel valued and appreciated, you might not value money, or you might not get the best value for your money, or your money might not be valued high or appreciating in your accounts. So, how you think and feel about yourself on that deeper subconscious level is how money responds to you in life. And because of that, it dictates everything else for you. And when that happens, my puppy is trying to get onto my lap here. And because of what happens there, the state that you are in when you are, say, buying something is the energy that you're putting out into the world and what's going to come back to you. So if you are purchasing something and you're in a state of fear, or you're worried about how much is in your bank account, you're putting fear into all of that, even if it's your groceries, and you're going to eat the energy of fear. If you're in a happy, joyous energy and you're doing the same thing, you're putting happiness and joy into your groceries or the things that you are purchasing, and that's what you're going to be eating. Literally, we are our emotions. We do eat them, and how our body looks even tells us what emotions we're in. So um, it's a direct correlation with money and things with money. So if we are in an energy of scarcity, look around in your environment. And if you're in an environment of scarcity, you're going to infuse scarcity into you. The other thing I'm going to say on this is it all has to do with your own perception, because what you might think has value, somebody else might not think it is value. So I had a client who brought a brain mapping device so we could actually monitor our brain waves when we were doing different meditation techniques to see what was happening. We just happened to have been in the home of a different client who was a multimillionaire. And this brainwave device, I was entranced with it, and it was only $500. I could get in for $500. And I'm thinking, wow, this is like really awesome. This is really cool. It's a lot less expensive than an EEG machine, the brain mapping machines. And wow, this is working. The multimillionaire client was like, wow, $500. That seems like a lot of money, doesn't it? And I'm like, you have how many more millions? And I'm like, this is a bargain. And they're like, no, it's not. So it also has to do with your own perception. So there's no hard right or wrong and hard rules around it. But the energy you are in is what you're infusing your environment with.
Man, I'm loving this conversation because before you got on, we were speaking about, I was listening to a podcast and I sent it to some of my clients that's sitting in this scarcity and fear state because of money, right? And the relationship they have with money. And I keep saying it actually also has nothing to do with the money more than how you feel about money and how you perceive money. So if you perceive money as the root to all evil, or there's never enough of, and I came from that. So I've lived experience of knowing that that was my energetic relationship to money. Right?
Mhm.
And whenever money was made in the forms it was made, because I'll share it openly again, I'm a product of prostitution. So for me, what was related there, like, the way my mom made money, hell no, it's evil. It's not the right way. Until I had to later on learn that the relationship with money is, you need to see it as an enabler, and that absolutely your worthiness and deservingness of it actually has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with how you seeing your relationship to it. And it wasn't an easy one, because until I don't know if you know John Assaraf, he's from the States.
Mhm.
He's done quite a bit of work around winning the game of money.
Mhm.
And there he did subliminal brain training, and you had to actually think about money in different forms. And what was your first experience of money? Was it a good experience? Was it a negative experience? And energetically, I mean, I find myself now rebuilding my business, and because my energy has shifted, I lost 90% of it in December, but I've rebuilt most of it in a short 6 months, because energetically I have shifted. If
Yes.
you asked me 2 years ago, no, it would have been a different person.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. John Asheroff, and he has the whole inner size as well.
Yes, yes,
And I run the film division over at the Los Angeles Tribune, amongst other things that I do. And so
yes.
I filmed him for a movie called Pillars of Power, which will be released in 2026. And I got to interview him at length for a documentary on that topic. So
I
yes,
absolutely love it. I
yes,
absolutely love it.
we're all connected that way.
I doing that program a few years ago, I was able to actually manifest a home at the ocean, which is what I wanted. And
Mhm.
then I also managed to manifest formalizing my school of life at 40, getting an honors degree. And just because I had done that subliminal brain training, inner size exercises, and it was a mental fitness and a complete
Yep.
paradigm shift.
Mhm.
Again, the tool was the tool, but how do we stay in the state? And so
Right.
I don't move away from that important point that you've mentioned.
And I think the tools, healing modalities, the things that we learn, they're going to be different for every person because what I teach may or may not work for one person, but it will work for another person. Or this healing modality worked for this person, but not for that person. And we use what we resonate with. And there's no right or wrong in how we resonate with doing the activity.
Tell me, Dawna, there is a bit of a delay on my side, so I can never see if you or hear if you're done because I can hear speaking. So forgive me that there was a long pause. But I wanna leap into this different healing modalities because what you spoke about earlier on about the surface level emotion and feeling is just that. But it's about going deeper and deeper and 2 or 3 levels beneath that. So I know that Brandon Base that does the journey work. Is this something that you dabbled into? Because when you speak about going beneath the surface like this, I know the journey process as a healing modality looks at digging deeper.
Mhm.
Any thoughts on that?
There's a number of different healing modalities that do that. But what I've learned is sitting there and asking myself the same question. And what is underneath that? And what is underneath that? Until I got to the point that there wasn't an answer. One of the things that I've taught in the past is when you sit in your own heart space with the outside emotion and you keep going back, if you imagine a gift and it has this wrapping paper of anxiety on it, when you unwrap it, what is also there? And then from there, when you unwrap that one, what is there? And you keep doing that. And I did that one day until I got back to a core feeling. And, what's really interesting is a lot of the different modalities teach a lot of the same things, but in a slightly different way. But a lot of them are emotion and frequency based. So when we start looking at it, EFT or tapping, you're tapping to get the emotion to come from the deeper layer to come out, and you're tapping to draw it to the surface. So they're all different various ways of doing it. I'm familiar with theta healing as well, asking, the various questions. But what I've done, even with Reiki and using your hands to emit energy into another person, you can feel the stuff that's coming out. So everything is an exchange of energy. And so with all of those and the different ones that I have studied, the different books I've read, Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins. Gosh, there's just so many different resources. They all say something very similar. So when you stop and you take a look at it, the real essence of what they're trying to do or get to is, how do I get to that core emotion? And I know oftentimes we use the word root, but I don't know until you go past that point that you ever reach the bottom, the bottom, the bottom. And so even in that heart exercise, I kept unwrapping my heart until I got to it. But when I did, it wasn't those outward emotions we put on. There was a soft, sacred space inside of me that was waiting, kind of like a brilliant diamond, and that we've just covered it with all of these things. So this brilliant diamond that we call our energy, our love, and then there might be a layer of peace, and then there might be a layer of balance, and there might be a layer of kindness, and then there might be a layer of I don't know, uncertainty, and then there might be a layer of and it goes all the way back out to whatever you're feeling in the moment. So when you actually get back to it, you're just sitting with your own essence.
tell me, you've encountered a lot of different people, in the line of work that you are doing, and you do things globally, I'm sure, helping people out. What is an experience or encounter that you might have had with someone that has taught you a profound lesson in all of this?
Oh, an encounter that I had with someone
Yeah.
who taught me a profound lesson. Wow. There's many. Which one?
Choose one.
I can think about the medicine women. I can think about the yoga healers and the Buddhist monks and all of them that have taught me various lessons. But sometimes our lessons come to us from everyday people or people that you meet. And one of them for me happens to be Ken Honda. He has a book called Happy Money. True Wealth is another book. And I had an opportunity to spend a week with him filming in Japan. And we went to a couple of different temples and a couple of different shrines, and he would share a story, but then he would finish the story at a different time. So unless you were paying attention, you didn't get the fullness of what he was saying. We were at this original temple that was there, and he was talking about the trees and how old the trees were, and that people actually donate money everywhere in Japan to keep replenishing and planting these trees. And then a while later, he says, I too started donating money for the trees because I realized that I have all of these books and people buy my books and it uses paper and the paper comes from the trees. And I don't know how many trees have been used for these books, but I want to keep selling books. So I'm going to donate money to keep planting these trees to give back. I've probably planted a lot more trees than the books, but it was about a karmic cycle and keeping things in balance and giving, or excuse me, I should say his phrase was receiving so I could share. He received money from these books that he was buying so he could share back and give back to the trees that were giving for the books. And it was a beautiful circle of life balance. And it was also, I saw a way of, wow, that's a very good way of overcoming guilt. So if you feel guilty on something or have guilt about something, then what is it that this is where we might have to do something? What is it that we have to do or we should do to put it back into balance so we can release the guilt? So that was one of the most profound lessons. My day-to-day life teaches me all kinds of things from everyday people just like that. And just having different encounters. Absolutely.
That's the beauty of being in a profession like this, is that you encountering amazing people who are, looked up to and whatnot. But sometimes the most important lessons come, like you say, from the day-to-day interactions with the simplest of people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It could be something somebody said that you heard differently because the tone was a little bit different. And you're like, I've heard that my entire life, but now I understand it. And when you
Correct.
think you learned something, there's always a deeper level, always a deeper level.
100%. And it just brings me back to a memory of my granny and growing up with her, and just certain things that she would say, which you kind of take for granted, but years later in doing this work, you understand the message that was attached to what she had said. And these are life lessons that we should take with us. So, Anissa, what's your thoughts on that?
I have a lot of thoughts, but I have a lot of feelings and emotions coming through my heart as I'm listening to this conversation. But the one thing I want to ask, Dawna, is you speak about being the mind whisperer, but I know that you are very heart-centered and heart-led.
Yeah.
So how do you blend the two, that there is the balance of both? Because for me, it seems that the mind whisperer is just one small component of it. But for us to really tap into the right energy and frequency, and everything that this conversation was about today is leading from the heart.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The heart has its own brain, and not many people know that.
Yes.
So here's how it works. We're electromagnetic beings. So electrically, energy runs up and down our body, and magnetically, it goes in and out of our body. And because it's doing this all day long, it creates an energy field or an aura around us, which can be measured by science, the energy field of something. And the thoughts that we think have an electrical component to it. The feelings that we feel have a magnetic component to it. So we think, which is about 10% of our reality. We feel 90% of our reality. But in society, we have that reverse. We think our thoughts create our reality. Yes, but it's the frequency of the thought that is creating your reality, which is the feeling component. So then what happens is, when we understand the connection between the mind and the heart and what it's doing, and we can translate our words and our thoughts into feelings and emotions, then we can understand the frequency and the vibration. Nikola Tesla said that if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, vibration, and frequency. And when we understand that, we have then the power to change it. But you have to start with a thought to get back to the frequency, to get back to all of the different things to make that change. And then when you do, your thought does change. Albert Einstein, I don't know if he actually said this or not, but he's given credit for saying this, that the future of all medicine is going to be the medicine of frequency. So when we understand that our thoughts have certain frequencies, but when we identify them, it comes back into that heart space. And so oftentimes we will think things like, I'm rich and abundant, but we don't feel rich and abundant in the heart space. So there's a disconnect. So when we go through what we call mind whispering, which is that transformational process, then when you think I'm rich and abundant, you feel rich and abundant in the heart space, and you're 100% whole there. So it's all connected. And when I talked about how our brain is the fastest supercomputer ever, and how fast things process, and I gave this very elaborate explanation many years ago, the person said, we still don't know what you do, so we're going to call you Mind Whisperer. And then they put it out, and then it stayed and it stuck. I fought it for a number of years, and then I'm like, I'm just going to accept it. It's going to stay with me. I tried not to have it, but it just keeps resurfacing. So when I did, I just, trademarked and put it all out on my different things. And now I have mail that shows up to my house. Dawna Campbell, the Mind Whisperer. And I'm like, okay, this is a real thing. So that's how I got it. I didn't give it to me. It's very heart-centered healing. That's where I was at, but it all works together because there is no separation.
I'm so glad you shared that, because now that we know about the mind and the heart and the vibration and energy, I have one final question on my side, because I know we're getting close to the end, is how does epigenetics play around? How does genetics then play a role in either cultivating the right energy and vibration and frequencies, or does it not play a role?
Oh, it plays a
I know
role.
Dr. Bruce Lipton is very passionate about this field, so please share with us.
And that can be a bunny trail as well, because it can go deep. Epigenetics, absolutely. Because in our DNA, it gets encoded into us when we're born. The thoughts, feelings, and emotions our mother experiences while we are in the womb. And the same for the dad, because it is connected by DNA. And so everything starts for you in this world when you are being formed. And that's the energy and the vibration that goes into the cells. But also with epigenetics, what is handed down in the DNA is the code for how you are going to start with your life and with the blueprint. And with that, you get encoded with different things throughout your life from that. So I'll give a story. My father grew up during the Great Depression. And during that time, you had to save everything just in case you needed it. Because if you got rid of it, you might need it in the future, and nobody had money for anything to replace it. And so when he crossed over, he still had the wedding boots he got married to my mother in, although he could not wear them anymore because our feet changed size over time. He couldn't wear them, couldn't put them on, but he still had them just in case he needed it. Well, that got encoded into my DNA. I had to keep stuff just in case I needed it. And I got to looking at that and went, maybe I don't need this. Maybe why do I have it? And I understood where it came from and the energy of where it got encoded. Now, it wasn't real strong within me. So now I go through all my stuff every couple of years going, I don't really need this anymore. Let's give it away. And then a couple of years later, it's like, maybe I should have kept that, but no, I can go get a new one, new technology. So, and from my mom's side, money was an embarrassment. And in epigenetics for her, money was an embarrassment. But one of the things on a more conscious or maybe group conscious level, back many, many years ago, people farmed the land and they had children and the men went out and they worked the land. The women stayed home in the house. Society has since then changed, but they had a lot of number of children because they needed children to help work the farm. And because of that, it created an energy dynamic financially between men and women. And that has been slowly shifting and changing over time. But what happens now with us, we are encoded that men are to be this way, women are to be this way, and it's still in the DNA to a degree. And then in society, we're trying to change it so we have that rub. Women can now go work and women can vote and women can do all of these things. But yet we want men to be a certain way. We're programmed that way, but yet we're changing it. And so it just creates this cyclone of all these different beliefs, emotions, and we can go around and around with that. But epigenetics has a huge piece in it unless you know how to go in and change the DNA code energetically, because DNA is also energetic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Wow.
I'm so sad that it's like an hour is up already. There's so many questions still to be asked. This has been so insightful and enjoyable. And I just wish that we had more time to continue talking about this.
Well, maybe Dawna would be willing to come back and have
Oh,
another thing.
Yeah, we would love that, Dawna, if you have the time and are willing to do it.
absolutely. I would love to. There is so much more to talk about.
Definitely.
And I felt like this was like such a beautiful, easygoing conversation, very highly intellectual concepts, but it didn't feel like that.
Mm.
It felt comfortable, it felt relatable. And I'm just want to acknowledge our audience that is here on both Instagram and YouTube that have watched. Thank you so much. We haven't been ignoring you. I've been typing away where I could just to acknowledge some that are here. But for those that are going to watch the replay, don't hesitate to get in touch with Dawna. So where do we find you, or where does our audience find you if they want to expand and connect with you a bit deeper on these conversations?
The easiest way is just to go to bettercalldawna.com, and it's Dawna, Dawna. But when you go there, you can just book a complimentary 10-15 minute call, and we can look and see what you're doing, what you're going through, what might be stopping you, and what is the best course of action for you.
So we're only going to see you again in 2026 because we are filled up for the rest of the year with guests. But I'm going to get Marissa to be in touch with your virtual assistant as well, and so that we can get you booked in for next year as early as January. And maybe we could have a segment around how do you energetically move away from New Year's resolutions and rather get into the being list
We can
instead
do
of the
that.
doing list. So I'm just thinking off the top of my head that could be a great topic.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm booking my session now.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, that's two of us.
It was lovely
Oh,
having you on, Dawna. Thank you so much for such an interesting, normally we go and like Anissa says, we'll acknowledge the listeners and stuff. And that's normally around, the half an hour mark or whatever. But I think I looked at my clock, my clock, and it said 45 minutes had passed, and it felt like it was just only maybe 20.
Yes.
So I do agree with Anissa. It just went so quickly, so smoothly, so comfortably, and with so much relevant information and education and golden nuggets. And we thank you for leaving those with us, and look forward to chatting with you soon on our call, on our complimentary call. But also, we're excited to have you back again.
Thank you. Thank you.
one
This-
final departure point for you, Dawna, that you'd like to leave in 30 seconds. What's your final golden nugget? But then do stay on. We normally end the live and just do a quick debrief with our guest.
Okay.
So what's the final nugget for our audience?
What I will say is a mantra that got me through all of those hard times. Trust and you will see, believe and you will know, have faith, all is well, follow your heart, and spirit will lead you.
Love that.
Thank you. On that positive, beautiful note, we will end the live. Do stay on with us, and we will see you again, same